You want a shortcut, but life isn't a secret corridor where someone hands you what you ask for just because you ask nicely. Life is a disciplined mirror. It reflects the state you maintain. And when I say state, I'm not talking about fleeting thoughts or hope or wishing for the best. I'm talking about the inner place from which you live. The visible world is delay, reflection, echo. The command is within, before any sign. So stop hunting for signs like a beggar of coincidences. Those who live by signs live in delay, because the sign always arrives later. Do you want results? Stop asking the world to prove itself to you. First, prove to yourself that you know how to remain in the correct state. Breathing is not superstition, nor is it an emotional tranquilizer. It's a key to your stance. It's the fastest way to take your body out of waiting mode and put it into its already happened mode. You can lie with words, you can fake it with a smile, you can post confidence while trembling inside, but you cannot sustain a breath of certainty while still feeling like someone who doesn't yet have it. The body reveals the state. That's why I start with breathing. It's the first door you can close with your own hands without depending on anything external. Now do it simply. Sit or stand as if taking your rightful place. Spine erect, jaw loose, shoulders dropping. Inhale through your nose, counting to 4, as if drawing in a clear certainty. Hold for 2, just to seal it, as if closing the lid of a box. Exhale for 6, long and continuous, as if letting go of an old piece of paper. Repeat. Let the air out completely, and notice the small natural pause before the next breath. In that pause resides the command. Do this for 60 seconds. If your mind wants to speed up, don't fight it, lead it. Return to the count as if returning to your throne. As you do this, understand what is happening. Most people breathe as if asking permission to exist. They take short breaths when they see a bill, hold their breath when they read a message, sigh heavily when they think about the future. And then they call this a difficult life. No. This is life reflecting a habitual state. Breathing is the first place where you see if you are living as a creator or as a hostage. If you breathe like a hostage, you decide like a hostage. If you decide like a hostage, you live like a hostage, even when you try to appear strong. The first truth is simple and weighty. Breathing is the silent command that stabilizes your state. You don't change reality with a burst of excitement, you change it with stability. Notice how someone who has just received excellent news doesn't try hard to feel good. The body already knows. The chest opens, the face relaxes, the eyes slow down. Notice how someone who fears losing something breathes as if swallowing air and their mind races like a frightened animal. You think the news causes the breathing, but your state is what determines how you interpret the news, and that interpretation is what determines the rest. Keep this image in mind. Imagine you are carrying a tray with a full glass. If you walk trembling and looking at the glass with every step, you'll spill it. If you steady your wrist, look ahead, and walk like someone who knows the way, the tray remains stable. The glass is your desire. The tray is your attention. The tremor is doubt. 60 seconds of correct breathing steadies your inner pulse. It's not magic, it's training. And training is what separates those who command from those who are led. Use breathing as internal proof. You don't need a convinced universe, you need an aligned body. Do a test now for 2 seconds, just 2. Feel what it would be like to wake up tomorrow already being the person who has what you want. It's not watching a long movie. It's feeling the normality. A relaxed forehead, a quiet stomach, a mind without questions. This brief feeling is a state being born, and you'll notice one thing. When you can feel this, your breath naturally lengthens. When you can't, it shortens. And see how life subtly exposes you. When you spend hours scrolling through your screen, comparing, getting irritated, it's because you're breathing in a state of scarcity, even if you repeat beautiful words. When you find yourself postponing conversations, delaying decisions, putting off simple actions, it's because you're breathing in a "I'm not capable" state. When you catch yourself reacting to any comment as if it were a sentence, it's because you're breathing in an "I need approval" state. And I tell you, don't argue with this, because arguing is still a reaction. You change by command. So the 60-second breath is this. a physical decree for your entire system. It's you saying, without asking, without arguing, I return to center. And when you return to center, you stop living on your knees before old evidence. You stop making delay a prison. You stop looking at the clock and calling the clock your enemy. Your life doesn't change when the clock changes. Your life changes when your place changes. Before moving on to the next truth, I'll be practical with you. If you want to deepen this discipline and have a clear path to apply what you're hearing in your daily life, with exercises, routines, and a structure to maintain the correct state when the world tries to pull you back, use the material indicated in the pinned comment for support. It doesn't exist to entertain you. It exists to help you put it into practice. The difference between those who transform and those who collect ideas lies in applied repetition. Now comes the second truth, and it separates children from adults within. You don't breathe to calm down. You breathe to accept the end. End is not defeat. End is an internal conclusion. It's the moment you strike the gavel and stop negotiating with the mirror. Do you want to compel reality to deliver? Then stop behaving like someone who is still waiting for delivery. Delivery begins when you occupy the state of someone who has already received, and you live from there without asking delay for permission. Think of an actor who has just left the stage after the final applause. He isn't hoping the play succeeds, it's already over. He knows the outcome. His body carries a silent dignity, not anxiety. Your mistake is living as if the play was still in the middle of the second act, looking at the clock and asking, when will it happen? Accepting the end is leaving the stage internally. It's stopping the rehearsal of the same fear. It's stopping the habit of imagining the worst. It's ceasing to be a nervous observer and becoming the master of your inner scene. How do you recognize that you've accepted the end? By the absence of inner noise. It's not emptiness, it's satisfaction. It's like closing your house door and feeling that it's locked. You don't go back 3 times to check, because there's an internal click that says, done. Most people don't have a click, they have a creak. And that's why they open and close the same door. They imagine and deny, decide and retreat, affirm and revoke themselves. The world doesn't know what to reflect because you don't know where you reside. Breathing is the click. It seals. And here's a gesture of power. After 60 seconds, don't rush to check. Don't ask the world for a report. Don't open the same app 1,000 times. Don't send messages to feel if it's close. This is the old state trying to return via urgency. The new state has no urgency, it has presence. If you've planted, you don't dig it up. If you've sealed it, you don't reopen it. Accepting the end is this, acting normally with certainty intact. Now the third truth is the language of command. The mental image is the idiom of the state, and breathing is the ink that fixes this image. Many imagine as observers, as if watching someone else's life. And then they complain that it's not happening. It's not happening because you're an outsider. You need to be inside. You need to feel that it's your everyday reality, without pretense, without exaggeration, with actual simplicity. Choose a short symbol that represents your new identity. Don't create a 15-minute movie. A symbol, a detail, the vibration of your phone with the confirming message, the weight of a key in your hand, the signature on paper, the feeling of entering a place and sensing it's mine, the sound of someone speaking your name with respect. As you breathe 4, pause 2, exhale 6, let this symbol remain lit within you like a simple sign. Don't force brilliance. Don't force emotion. Let it exist as a memory. Do you want an image that works? Then stop using it as a request. Use it as a memory. A memory doesn't argue. A memory doesn't beg. A memory remains. That's why I say keep it small and alive. A short scene repeated with truth is worth more than a gigantic story made with effort. Effort reveals your doubt. Naturalness reveals your conviction. I'll give you a symbolic scene to illustrate this. A man enters a dark warehouse looking for something precious. He trips over boxes, hits his knee, curses the darkness and concludes, "This place is dangerous." He turns on the light and suddenly the place is no longer dangerous. The boxes were the same. The floor was the same. What changed was the interpretation. The state is the light. Breathing is the act of turning it on. When you turn it on, you stop calling an enemy what was merely unknown. Many people call this luck. I call it a state adjustment. And pay attention. When you find yourself trying to imagine you are still outside, when you find yourself remembering that it is so, you have entered. The sign that you've entered isn't an emotional explosion. It's a firm silence. Your mind stops asking, is it so, and starts acting as if it is. And life, which is a mirror, responds to it is. Now comes the fourth truth, the one that saves you from the invisible prison. Don't negotiate with time. Educate your attention. Time is merely the interval between assumption and evidence. Those who suffer in this interval are those who turn the interval into a tribunal. The person sits before the clock, judges and condemns. It should have arrived by now. It didn't come, so it won't. It took too long, so it doesn't exist. The world is just showing an old echo, and you are using it as a sentence. I'll give you a simple comparison. You order food and the app says in preparation. You don't enter the kitchen to ask every 30 seconds if the cook is stirring the pot. You wait because you know preparation is part of it. But when it comes to your life, you become an inspector of the invisible. You open the reality app every minute. Has it arrived yet? And every time you open it, you inject anxiety into your state. You call this prudence. I call it disguised sabotage. So use breathing as a reset throughout the day. Before opening messages, before going on social media, before starting work, before lying down, before talking to someone who usually pulls you back into the old role. 60 seconds. And furthermore, before responding to something that irritates you, breathe 3 full cycles and only then respond. This small interval changes the entire story because you stop responding like a hostage and start responding like someone who has chosen their own place. You're not trying to control the world. You are controlling the point from which you respond to the world. Observe life like a book you've already read. Which chapters repeat with different covers? The same kind of delay, the same fear of loss, the same feeling of not being chosen, the same financial insecurity, the same weariness of almost. This isn't destiny. This is a recurring state. And a recurring state isn't solved with more information. If it were, you'd already be free because you've heard too much information already. It's resolved with internal discipline. Breathing is the most direct discipline because it doesn't depend on discourse. It depends on decision. And here's a saving warning. The world will try to test you with small baits, not with grand dramas. It will be a comment, a minimal delay, a number that seems worse, a sideways glance, news that tries to scare you. These tests exist to see if you return to the old state. If you return, the mirror confirms. If you remain, the mirror yields. Therefore, when the test comes, don't argue with the test. Breathe, and breathe like someone who already lives in the accepted end. Now comes the fifth truth, the root of the decree. Assumed identity is the final command, and the final command is silent. You don't manifest an object. You become the kind of person for whom that thing is normal. You don't need to announce anything, you need to embody it. And embodying it appears in the details, in the rhythm of your step, in the firmness of your gaze, in the quality of your silence, in the way you navigate a setback without losing dignity. One who is in the correct state doesn't need to prove, they need to remain. The biggest deception of the old state is the voice that says, "But I've already tried. But I did it, and it didn't come, but I don't deserve it. But the world is hard." This voice isn't an intelligent enemy. It's just an old habit wanting its throne back. Treat it like an old radio playing in the corner of the room. You don't need to break the radio. You just need to stop dancing to its tune. You breathe, return to the short symbol, return to the accepted end, and continue living like someone who has already crossed over. The insistence of the old is just a sign that you are leaving. And I want you to see how this works at life's most common level, because that's where you prove that you've taken charge. Imagine someone who enters an elevator, presses the button, and out of impatience presses the same button 10 more times. The elevator won't go up faster. What goes up is anxiety. Most people do this with reality. They commit for 30 seconds and then press the fear button for hours. What if it doesn't come? What if I'm rejected? What if I lose? Each what if is another click on the wrong button. Breathing is you taking your finger off the panic button and keeping your finger on the decision. And consider another scene. A chess player who, upon seeing an opponent's piece advance, panics and abandons their plan. They forget they are playing a long game and react to every micro-movement as if it were the end. The world does the same to you. It moves a piece, changes a detail, delays a little, shows a number, and awaits your reaction. If you react like someone who doesn't have it, you give up the game. If you breathe like someone who has already won, you stick to the plan. The state is the plan. Breathing is the gesture that prevents you from abandoning the plan on impulse. And here's a simple exercise to seal your identity, without pretense. After 60 seconds, inwardly say a short phrase, not to convince, but to sign. Something like, "It is done," or "It's normal for me," or "I am already in this place," and stop. Don't repeat it 100 times. Don't argue. Sign and move on. A signature is small but definitive. It changes the way you walk, how you choose, how you speak. When you truly sign, you don't need to explain. If you want to perceive if you are truly in the state, observe your micro-decisions. One who is in the correct state does not sabotage themselves with small choices. They don't procrastinate out of fear. They don't diminish themselves out of habit. They don't seek crumbs of validation. They don't expose themselves to what weakens them just to feel like they are doing something. They choose what strengthens the state: environments, conversations, habits, silence. And when the world presents a provocation, they don't hand over the steering wheel. They breathe and the decision returns to the creator. Many people think that forcing the universe to deliver means fighting the world. No, it's forcing your own attention to remain where you've decided. This is what gives power. Permanence. The world respects permanence. The world obeys those who don't contradict themselves. And the great enemy of permanence is the habit of narrating the problem all day long. You turn your tongue into a machine for printing the old. So make a vow. When the impulse comes to complain, to dramatize, to tell the old story to someone, breathe first. One complete cycle. And then choose words that align with the new state. It's not to pretend, it's not to betray yourself. And I'll tell you how to use this when it matters most. At night. At night, when the day's noise subsides, the old state tries to return with images, memories, regrets, comparisons. It wants to capture you before sleep because it knows you let your guard down. So, before sleeping, do the 60 seconds. And then, for a few moments, don't think about what's missing. Think about what is normal in your new life. Don't force details. Just the feeling of being resolved. That feeling is your passport. You don't need to see everything, you need to dwell in the correct feeling. And if during the day you feel you've fallen, don't use that as proof of failure. Use it as a warning. I got distracted. Distraction is human. Permanence is a choice. Practice isn't perfect, it's repeated. Each time you return, you strengthen the muscle of your state. And there comes a point where the old loses strength, not because you fought it, but because you stopped feeding it. You stopped giving it a stage. You exited the theater of fear. I'll give you another image. Imagine a lake. You throw stones and the water becomes agitated. Then you stop, and the lake returns to being a mirror. The state is the lake. Reactions are stones. The 60-second breath is the moment you decide to stop throwing stones at your own mind. When the lake becomes smooth, you see the sky reflected. Many people chase after signs in the world. The biggest sign is your peace emerging without an external reason. Peace without reason is the correct state. And when the state is correct, reality rushes to invent the external reason. Now I conclude with a command you need to hear without romanticism. You cannot continue living as a spectator of your own life and call that inner power. You cannot continue blaming people, the economy, the past and luck, and at the same time say you understand how this works. One who understands takes charge. One who takes charge stops begging. One who stops begging begins to be obeyed. So from now on, stop begging for external changes. Stop asking for proof. Stop bowing before what is delayed. You will command in silence. 60 seconds of breathing as a command, and then coherence. You will choose a state and dwell in it until the world, tired of reflecting contradiction, reorganizes itself and delivers. Not out of favor, but by law. Reality doesn't respond to your despair, it responds to your consistency. It doesn't respond to your request. It responds to your place. And when you feel you're slipping, don't dramatize. Dramatizing is the old state trying to seduce you with intensity. You return to the basics. 4, pause 2, exhale 6. 60 seconds, the short symbol, the accepted end, the silent identity. Then you get up and live. You speak less and sustain more. You demand less from the world and demand more discipline from yourself. Because that's what a creator does. They don't negotiate with the mirror. They choose the face that will appear and maintain it. And if you want to consolidate this with a practical step, transforming this breathing into a routine, reinforcing your assumed identity, and gaining structure so you don't get lost when life tries to provoke you, the material in the pinned comment is there as direct support for practice. Use it as an extension of your decision. Apply, repeat, and observe the world aligning itself with the state you have chosen within yourself. Your reality doesn't need to be convinced, it needs to be commanded. And the command begins now, in the silence of 1 minute well spent. When Neville came to me, his eyes carried the weight of someone trying to control the world with their own hands. He believed he needed to act, to do something, to move the visible pieces so that life would finally align in his favor. But I told him, do nothing after this. He looked at me confused, as many do when they hear the truth for the first time. For modern man has learned to live by force, not by faith. He has grown accustomed to believing that power lies outside, in circumstances, opportunities, people, and has forgotten that everything that exists is merely a reflection of the state he holds within himself. He who understands this grasps the secret of creation. The world is merely a mirror of consciousness, and the mirror cannot reflect something that has not first been assumed as true within. Do nothing is not an invitation to passivity. It is a call to absolute trust in the invisible. It is the surrender of struggle, anxiety, and doubt. It is the supreme act of faith, one in which man ceases outer movement because he knows that the inner movement has already been completed. When imagination has been exercised with conviction, the work is already done. All that remains is to rest in the feeling that the desire has been fulfilled. This rest is not disinterest, it is certainty. It is the same rest described in the scriptures when it is said that God rested on the seventh day, not because he was tired, but because he saw that everything was very good. So too must man rest in his inner creation, knowing that the visible world will adjust to the silent decree of his consciousness. The common mind calls this madness, but the initiate recognizes it as law. Physical effort is an attempt to fix the reflection without changing the cause. The true creator understands that all transformation begins in the invisible and ends in the visible. When you imagine, feel, and accept the desired state as present, the universe begins to reorganize itself to express that acceptance. This is why, after the assumption, one should do nothing, because any attempt to do is a confession that you do not yet believe, and doubt is the only force that can delay the inevitable. Therefore, silence is the altar of the Creator. It is in inner rest that power manifests without noise, without resistance, without fear. This is what I taught Neville, that man creates not by moving the body, but by moving consciousness, that the most powerful act in the world is not physical labor, but the invisible gesture of inner acceptance. For he who rises to the state of his fulfillment and rests there has already accomplished everything. The rest is merely the world obeying its new Lord, the I Am. The first principle is to understand that everything is already created. Nothing man desires needs to be done, only accepted. This is the truth few can bear, because it destroys human pride in wanting to control the invisible. The universe does not await orders born of fear, haste, or necessity. It responds only to the vibration of being. When you feel something is true without doubt, without hesitation, the creation is already complete. It is like a seed cast into the earth. The invisible work has already begun, even if nothing seems to have changed. The foolish man digs at the soil every day, trying to check if the seed is growing. The wise man, on the other hand, plants, trusts, and waits in peace, knowing that the invisible works with perfection. So it is with imagination. Once you assume the desired state as real, the process is complete, and the only thing that remains is to sustain that state with unshakable faith. When Neville understood this, he began to realize that the world was not something to be changed, but something to be understood. Everything you see today is merely the echo of an old creation, a frozen image of a past state of consciousness. That is why I told him, do not look at the mirror and try to correct the reflection. Change the face it shows. The reflection is the physical world, and the face is your inner state. Everything that exists out there is an effect. The common man lives reacting to effects, trying to adjust the shadows. The awakened creator acts only upon the cause, consciousness. When he changes what is within, the outside has no choice but to obey. The human mind, addicted to the idea of effort, always wants to do something. But the true doing happens in silence. It is in this inner silence, when the feeling of already having is accepted as real, that the invisible world begins to move the threads of reality. The force that creates universes does not need your exhaustion. It needs your certainty. Everything sustained with conviction and pure emotion, without contradiction, inevitably takes form. This is the law. And every time you doubt, you interrupt the flow of this law, just as a river ceases to flow when the mind builds a dam of fear. The man who understands this principle ceases to be a slave to circumstances. He no longer asks, he declares. He no longer waits, he accepts. Because on the plane of imagination, everything already is. Nothing is lacking to one who comprehends the power of the I am. When you say with feeling, I am prosperous, I am loved, I am healed, you are not trying to create these things. You are recognizing what has always existed at a higher level of being. Acceptance is the bridge between the invisible and the visible. Resistance is the only barrier. Therefore, the first step of creation is inner rest, the quiet knowing that everything seen outside is merely the confirmation of what has been assumed within. When you establish yourself in this knowing, the entire world bows before your silent certainty. The second principle is inner rest, the conscious rest that arises from the certainty that the desire has already been fulfilled. The man who has understood the law does not live in tension, does not rush, does not seek signs. He knows that all agitation is the disguised denial of faith. He who still chases after the result shows by his very movement that he does not believe the work is complete. But he who trusts rests. It is this rest and not haste that moves the invisible gears of the universe. When the mind quiets itself in the certainty of fulfillment, the forces of the world silently organize to manifest that which already is. Inner rest is the true doing nothing that so confuses the common man. He thinks faith is waiting with folded arms, but that is merely passivity. The Creator's rest is different. It is an active stillness, charged with conviction. It is a state where the heart is so sure that the creation has already happened, that all anxiety dissolves. In this state, a person does not need to prove anything nor seek confirmation, because they feel, and feeling is the seed of reality. When you feel something as real, the invisible has already begun to obey. Everything that happens afterward is merely the physical transcription of what was accepted in spirit. That is why I told Neville, after you imagine, do nothing. Because every attempt to act to force the outcome would be a confession of doubt. He who trusts does not push the river, he flows with it. When you maintain the assumed state with serenity, the world begins to silently bow to your new vibration. The right people appear, opportunities align, paths open effortlessly. Not because you did something, but because you became something. The change in being is the true engine of the change in having. In the silence of inner rest, the power of God works without resistance. It is at this point that the human mind often interferes, trying to help, push, prove it is doing its part. But man's part is not to do, it is to accept. Imagination is already the creative act. Acceptance is the completion of the work. Everything that comes after, if sustained in doubt, only delays the inevitable. The universe responds to the dominant vibration, not to anxious attempts. Therefore, when the desire is felt as real, cease all effort. Remain in the state of one who has already received. This serenity is the seal of fulfillment. It is in it that faith transforms into fact. When man rests in the consciousness of the already accomplished, he not only trusts in God, he acts as God, creator, silent, and absolutely certain that everything assumed in the invisible will manifest at the right time. The third principle is the discipline of imagination, the conscious mastery of what one sees and feels within. An undisciplined mind is like a gardener who plants and uproots seeds at the same time, expecting to harvest abundance where there is contradiction. The true creator, however, knows that imagination is the only field where all reality is born. He does not imagine randomly, nor is he swayed by fleeting impulses. He shapes with intention, persistence, and purity of feeling. This is where most fail, because they confuse desire with creation. To desire is to acknowledge lack. To imagine with conviction is to acknowledge possession. He who imagines knowing he already has, creates. He who imagines desiring merely perpetuates the distance between what is and what he wants to be. The discipline of imagination begins when man decides to guard his thoughts like a sacred guardian. Every image sustained with emotion is a living seed cast into the invisible. Therefore, it's not about fantasizing, but about feeling with precision what one has chosen to live. When Neville learned to see the inner world as more real than the outer, he began to understand that imagination is not an escape from reality, but its foundation. Everything that now exists in the visible world was first an image in some mind. Nothing is born from the outside in. Everything is from the inside out. When the mind accepts this, man becomes selective with what he allows into the temple of consciousness. He ceases to nourish thoughts of doubt, fear, and failure, because he understands that each of them, if sustained, will inevitably take form. The disciplined creator does not fight against unwanted thoughts. He simply replaces them with new images imbued with feeling. He knows that emotion is the breath that gives life to an idea. Therefore, when imagining, it's not enough to see. One must feel. Feeling is the secret. It is emotion that imprints the new reality onto the fabric of the invisible, making it inevitable on the physical plane. This discipline requires constancy, not effort. The man who imagines with faith does not need to repeat with anxiety. He repeats to reinforce the feeling of possession until the new state becomes as natural as breathing. And when the state becomes natural, manifestation is certain, because the universe always mirrors what man feels as real. Thus, disciplined imagination is the bridge between the invisible and the visible, between the divine and the human. Therefore, master your imagination as one guards a treasure. Do not let it run wild with thoughts of doubt or fear. Imagine only what you wish to be true and feel it as already fulfilled. For when the mind and heart unite in a living image, the visible world has no power to resist. Everything sustained in persistent feeling becomes flesh, form, reality. This is the power of the awakened creator, to transform the invisible into the visible solely by the force of his sustained attention. The fourth principle is the denial of appearances. The visible world is merely a mirror, a shadow projected by consciousness. Everything you see is crystallized past, a reflection of a previous state of being. Therefore, fighting against circumstances is the same as arguing with one's own reflection. No mirror changes before the face changes, and it is here that many lose power, because they look into the mirror of life and say as it hasn't happened yet. Nothing has changed. It's impossible. These words are like chains that bind man to the old image. He who understands the law does not react to what he sees. He remains faithful to the invisible, knowing that the visible is merely the natural delay of a cause already planted within. The denial of appearances is not stubbornness, it is wisdom. It is the understanding that the external world has no power of its own. It is an effect, an echo, a reflection. When you observe something and give it the power to define what is possible, you abdicate creative authority. But when, faced with what seems contrary, you silently affirm, "This too shall pass, for my state is different," then the old image begins to dissolve. The true creator is not impressed by what he sees. He sustains the invisible with such conviction that the world has no choice but to bow to the new vibration. This is how I taught Neville not to be swayed by circumstances. I told him, when the world seems to deny your desire, remember that it is only repeating what you once believed. Do not be deceived by the shadows. And he understood that external reality always tries to test man's faith, presenting the opposite of what was assumed, as if asking, "Do you still believe?" Most give up at this point and return to the old state. But the initiate remains still within, and it is in this inner stillness that the invisible overcomes the visible. To deny appearances is an act of self-love. It is to tell oneself, "Nothing outside of me can determine what I am." It is to keep the inner gaze fixed on the fulfilled vision, even when everything around screams the opposite. It is to act as one who already possesses, to speak as one who already is, to feel as one who already lives that which he imagines. This is the faith that moves the invisible, the faith that ignores the senses and trusts in the silent law that governs the universe. Therefore, when the world challenges you, do not react. Smile, be silent, and return to your center. What you see now is merely the past. The new is already germinating within you. And when the inner state becomes firm, the physical world bows. Appearances have no power before a man who lives by inner vision. The invisible, sustained with conviction, always overcomes the visible, because the visible is merely the delayed echo of that which was once felt as real. The fifth principle is that of unity between man and his state. There is no distance between what you are and what you manifest. External life is merely the faithful reflection of the I am that you sustain within. Everything man experiences is the inevitable expression of what he believes himself to be. When he says, "I am poor," the world reorganizes itself to confirm this. When he affirms, "I am blessed," invisible forces conspire to materialize that truth. There is no God outside of you manipulating circumstances. There is only consciousness, your own being, shaping the world according to the state it assumes as real. This is the deepest revelation Neville understood, that the name of God revealed in the scriptures, "I am," is the creative power present in every man. When man awakens to this unity, he ceases to ask and begins to declare. He no longer implores for blessing. He assumes himself to be the very source of blessing. Everything changes when he understands that there is no God and I, there is only God as I. Human consciousness is the channel through which the infinite expresses itself. Therefore, the state you assume is the altar where the divine manifests. If you assume the state of lack, God reveals himself as scarcity. If you assume the state of fullness, God reveals himself as abundance. Man does not create something new. He merely reveals the face of God that corresponds to what he believes himself to be. This unity dissolves fear, for fear is born from the illusion of separation, the idea that there is something outside of you that can deny, harm, or hinder you. But when you understand that the I am is the cause of all things, fear loses its dominion. Man united with his state is like a rock in the midst of a storm. The wind may blow, but he does not move. He knows that nothing can occur outside the consciousness he sustains, and if the world moves unfavorably, he simply changes the state, and the world obeys. This is supreme freedom, to know that there is no one to blame, no one to convince, no one to conquer. All there is consciousness, and consciousness is choice. To choose the state is to choose destiny. The awakened man no longer asks, "When will things change?" For he knows that time is merely the necessary interval for the invisible to become visible. He remains tranquil, living in the feeling of the already accomplished, because he understands that the I am is the creative verb itself in action. Therefore, recognize now, you and your state are one. There is no separation between the Creator and his creation. What you are within, the world will be without. Assume your divinity, not as an act of arrogance, but of remembrance. For the Son has always been equal to the Father in essence, and when man says with conviction, "I am," the universe responds in perfect obedience, "So be it." Therefore, my son, when I told you do nothing after this, I meant stop doubting, cease the search. The creative act was already completed the moment you accepted it within yourself. All the rest is merely the shadow moving until it aligns with the new light your consciousness has kindled. The man who understands this truth abandons despair because he realizes that life is not a struggle. It is a reflection. He no longer chases after things, He attracts them silently by the state in which he lives. He does not pray asking, but giving thanks. He does not wait for signs, because the greatest sign is the peace he feels in knowing that he already is. The law is simple, but man complicates it because he is afraid to trust the invisible. He wants proof. He wants immediate results. He wants guarantees that only the visible world can provide. But faith is not about seeing. It is about knowing. To know that what is assumed with conviction already exists, and that time is not an obstacle, merely the stage being set to accommodate the new state. Therefore, learn to rest in being. Close your eyes, feel what you desire as already yours, and from that moment do not move in doubt. Act in the world with the naturalness of one who already lives what he has imagined. Creation does not require effort, only consciousness. Everything you see was first imagined, and everything you imagine with faith will become visible. Therefore, do not beg for external changes. Command with inner serenity. Do not ask the world to listen to you. Speak in silence, like one who knows that the voice of consciousness is the voice of God. Sustain the state, and the world will sustain with you. And when appearances challenge you, smile, for you will know that you are merely watching the old depart. Rest then in the certainty of being. Do nothing but believe, for he who understands the power of the I Am no longer needs to move mountains, he becomes the mountain. The entire universe bows before one who knows who he is, and the man who lives this truth walks serenely, because he has discovered that everything already is, everything has already been given, and nothing can be denied to one who in silence and certainty declares, I am. Pause for a moment. Silence the world's noise. Breathe. What you call reality, this sequence of bills, schedules, news, and worries, is merely the echo of something deeper, the reflection of the images you silently hold within yourself. What appears before your eyes is not what truly exists, but what you believe to exist. Every figure in your account, every person on your path, every coincidence of the day, all of it is just the projection of an assumed inner state, consciously or unconsciously. You have been conditioned to think that money comes from outside, from effort, luck, or someone noticing you. But money, like any manifestation, is just a messenger of your inner state. It moves where there is certainty. It avoids where there is doubt. And as long as your mind is divided between I want and but what if it doesn't come, the world will reflect exactly that division. Half-open doors, delayed promises, opportunities that almost happen. Therefore, I ask you, for a single day, try something most people never dare. An entire day without asking, without worrying, without waiting. Just one day assuming everything is already yours. One day acting as if you possess what you once sought. One day feeling worthy of abundance, not as someone desiring a gift, but as someone claiming an inheritance, because that is what it is, a forgotten inheritance. You were made in the image of the Creator. This is not spiritual poetry. It is a law. In the image does not mean appearance, but nature. The Creator imagines, and what is imagined becomes. And if you are made of the same substance, you also create through assumption. The difference is that you forgot. You started to believe more in the bills that arrive than in the ideas that are born within. You began to measure the invisible by the senses, when the visible is merely the shadow of the invisible. Today, you will reverse that order. Today, you will not react to the world, you will command it. Not with arrogance, but with the calm authority of one who knows that everything seen is merely a response. And if it is a response, your state is what asks first. Money, opportunity, change, they do not create themselves, they merely obey what you assume to be true. So be silent. Forget the how and the when. Close your eyes and imagine the end as already achieved. See yourself free, peaceful, prosperous. Feel the relief of one who has already received, the gratitude of one who is already living the result, and sustain that just for one day. You will discover that the universe is not a distant force to be convinced. It is a living, malleable mirror that only knows how to say yes to what you are within. The first principle is simple, but it separates those who live as creators from those who merely survive by reacting to the world. Money does not come when desired. It comes when you become the type of person who naturally possesses it. To desire is to declare to the universe that something is missing. It is to reinforce the state of absence, and the universe, being merely a perfect mirror of what you assume to be, can only give you more of the same, more waiting, more distance, more not yet. Therefore, when you say, "I want prosperity," you push it away because you confess not having it. But when you say, "I am prosperous," without needing proof, you have already changed the state that creates the proofs. It is the being, not the asking, that moves the invisible forces. Many do not understand that money is not a mysterious substance that descends from the sky. It is a vibration, a frequency of consciousness. The poor mind is noisy, doubtful, always looking outward. The rich mind is silent, centered, confident, not because it already has everything, but because it knows that having is merely the reflection of being. And when the being changes, everything that exists is rearranged to obey it. The mistake of almost everyone is trying to attract what they desire while remaining in the same inner state of scarcity. They want a harvest without changing the seed. They want new results with the same old mind. Therefore, the secret is not to work harder, pray more, or force positive thinking. The secret is to mentally inhabit the desired end until it becomes so natural that the world has no choice but to manifest it. When you move through life as someone who already has, your words change, your posture changes, your gaze changes. You stop waiting for the right moment and begin to act coherently with the state of abundance. And this silent coherence is magnetic. It attracts what is in harmony with it. Imagine an actor who, before stepping onto the stage, already fully embodies the character. He doesn't pretend to be, he is. And when he steps into the scene, the audience believes, the scenery comes alive, the story unfolds. It is the same with you. The world is the stage, and the life you live is the role you have chosen to play. If you continue playing the character of lack, the plot will always be the same. But if today, just for one day, you choose the role of abundance, the scenery will begin to shift. So don't ask the universe to give you money. Become the consciousness of one who has it. Feel the weight of the bills in your hands. See the numbers growing in the account. Hear the words approved. It's paid. You did it. Experience the real emotion of achievement, and it will cease to be a dream and become a state. And that state, sustained with faith and constancy, is the supreme decree of creation. The second principle is to understand that imagination is not a distraction from reality. It is reality itself in its invisible phase. Everything that exists in the physical world first existed in the silent field of the mind. Every coin, every house, every idea that once became an empire was born from an inner image sustained until it took form. The problem is that most people use imagination to confirm fear. They imagine debts, failures, rejection, scarcity, and call this worry. The universe, however, does not distinguish whether what you imagine is desired or feared. It merely reflects the image faithfully. Therefore, what you see now in your life is the exact mirror of the dominant images you have cultivated without realizing it. Money does not appear out of nowhere. It is coagulated from the invisible by the power of disciplined imagination. When you imagine something with feeling, you are imprinting a vibrational order in the field of existence. It's as if you were saying, this is what I am. And life obediently begins to move all the pieces, people, circumstances, ideas, so that the inner picture reveals itself in matter. But most people try to imagine the end while still doubting. They want to visualize wealth but carry a constant feeling of lack. They want to imagine success but feel small. And imagination, when contradicted by emotion, nullifies itself. Therefore, the secret lies in feeling what you imagine as something present, not distant. When you close your eyes and feel the warmth of victory, the relief of a paid bill, the joy of seeing a result that once seemed impossible, your subconscious accepts that image as fact. And the subconscious is the worker of creation. It does not question, it merely executes. Dedicate an entire day to this. Imagine the accomplished end and feel the corresponding emotion. Don't visualize money coming. Visualize the state of one who already has it. See yourself free from worries, generous, peaceful, secure. See yourself helping others, laughing at what once distressed you, experiencing the lightness of one who has already triumphed. Don't force it, just allow it. Imagination is the link between the invisible and the visible, the divine and the human, the creator and their creation. When you use it with intention and faith, time bends and the impossible reorganizes itself. The right doors open, opportunities emerge, and the path that once seemed closed begins to reveal itself step by step. Remember, nothing real happens outside before it happens within. Sustain your vision, and the world, like an obedient servant, will bow to the image you kept alive in your mind. The third principle is to completely abandon the habit of reacting to appearances. Everything you see is merely a delayed reflection of what you once believed to be. The visible world is like the light of a star you observe in the sky. It may have ceased to exist millennia ago, but its image still travels to you. So it is with your current reality. It is the old light of mental states you no longer need to sustain. If you look at your bank statement, your debts, the delay of opportunities, and allow this to dictate what is possible, you will be perpetuating the past. The secret lies in not reacting to what has already been created, but in sustaining what is being created now within you. Appearances only have power over those who believe in them. They whisper, "You won't succeed. Things are still the same. Nothing has changed." And if you listen to that voice, you return to the old state, the state of limitation. But when you begin to see beyond appearances, you understand that every limitation is merely a temporary illusion. The invisible is more real than the visible. The invisible is the cause, and the visible merely the effect. He who allows himself to be deceived by the effect relinquishes the power of the cause. Therefore, when circumstances seem contrary, do not fight them. Just look and say in silence, "This is the past dissolving," and return to the inner vision of what you have chosen to be. This is true faith, not believing in something despite the evidence, but knowing that the evidence is merely a delayed shadow of what you have already decided. Faith is not emotion, it is position. It is to remain unshakable while the world adjusts to the new decree. He who lives reacting to the external lives trapped in the cycle of cause and effect. But he who creates from within breaks the cycle and establishes new causes. And the world, sooner or later, bows before him. When you stop looking for signs and start being the sign, everything will change. You will be the very testimony of transformation. So, if your balance is still low, be grateful. It is only showing who you were, not who you are now. Do not weep before scarcity. Smile before the invisible truth that is already fulfilling itself. Sustain your new identity with firmness. Speak, walk, decide, and behave as one who already possesses what they desire. Because, in the eyes of the law, this is already true. And when the new state becomes more real to you than the old reflection, the old disappears, and the invisible finally takes form. The fourth principle is inner persistence. Most people start well, feel enthusiastic in the first few days, but give up as soon as the world doesn't change immediately. And it is at that exact moment that creation stops. The physical universe is dense and slow. It needs constancy to align with the new state. Imagine planting a seed and every day digging up the soil to see if it has sprouted. This action kills the process. Faith is the opposite of that. It is to plant, water with feeling, and remain in silence, knowing that the invisible is already working for you. When you assume a new state, that of prosperity, for example, the old state begins to die. And death in any form is uncomfortable. The external world will test you. It will seem like nothing is happening or that everything is getting worse. People drift away, bills emerge, opportunities vanish. But this is not a setback, it is a cleansing. The universe is removing what does not align with the new being you have chosen to be. If you understand this, you will not be shaken. You remain firm, sustaining the inner state with serenity, because you know that apparent chaos is merely the birth of a new reality. Persistence is not physical effort, it is emotional fidelity. It is to remain feeling the invisible truth, even when everything seems to deny it. When doubt comes, and it will come, remember, the test is always the last step before manifestation. Doubt is not a sign of failure, but an invitation to decide anew. He who reaffirms it is already mine in the midst of the storm, he conquers. The weak react, the Creator remains. Train yourself not to waver. Sustain the new vibration until it becomes your natural state. In the beginning, this will require attention, like keeping a flame lit in the wind. But with time, this flame transforms into a sun, constant, unshakable, self-sufficient. Persistence transforms desire into conviction, and conviction shapes reality. So, when nothing seems to change, do not change yourself. When the silence seems long, continue imagining the end as already achieved. Say to yourself, I know it already is, and return to that state whenever doubt knocks, because it is at that exact moment, when nothing seems to be happening, that everything is happening. Persistence is the bridge between the invisible and the visible. He who crosses without looking back arrives. He who doubts halfway returns to the starting point. Remain steadfast. The world is already yielding, even if you do not yet see it. The fifth principle is recognition. Everything you recognize as true grows, everything you ignore disappears. The universe is a vast consciousness that merely mirrors the content of your own. When you say it's difficult, life agrees. When you say money comes easily, it also agrees. You are the decree, and the world is merely the fulfillment. Most people live reacting to conditions, without realizing that by recognizing them as permanent, they keep them alive. Scarcity is not an enemy to be overcome, it is an illusion that dissolves when you stop recognizing it. Recognition is the seal of creation. It requires no words, only feeling. If within you there is constant recognition that you are prosperous, free, capable, the universe has no choice but to project circumstances that correspond to that state. But if you live recognizing delays, debts, lack, this becomes your altar of adoration, and what is adored grows. Everything you place emotional attention on becomes your God, and life bows before it. Therefore, observe where your attention lies. It is the compass of your creative power. If you spend all day recognizing the problem, you feed it. If you dedicate the same time to recognizing the good, you multiply it. He who understands this law never despairs before appearances. He recognizes only what he wishes to see expanded. Even when everything seems contrary, he maintains focus on the invisible truth that already is. Gratitude is the highest form of recognition. When you sincerely give thanks, you are not asking. You are asserting possession. Giving thanks before receiving is the supreme gesture of faith. It is to say to the universe, I already have it, even if my eyes do not yet see it. And by saying this with conviction, the vision changes. Reality adjusts. So today, make a pact with yourself. Recognize only what you wish to live. Facing any situation, ask yourself, does this reflect what I am or what I was? If it is the past, do not react. If it is the new, expand upon it. The power lies in choosing what to recognize as real. The world is neutral. Your consciousness defines it. When recognition becomes a habit, transformation becomes inevitable. You will begin to see money flow in unexpected ways, not because something external changed, but because the reflection finally aligned with the new image you sustained within. And at that point you will understand. Reality never resisted you. It merely waited for you to remember who you truly are. Now, understand, nothing said here is theory or pretty philosophy. It is law. A law as ancient as existence itself, governing the invisible and the visible, spirit and matter, thought and result. You are not in this world to beg, but to command. Not to supplicate for blessings, but to create them with the power of your own being. Every day you have two choices: to continue reacting to the world of appearances, or to decide in silence to command the universe through the state you choose to inhabit. Stop asking. Stop supplicating external forces to do for you what only your consciousness can decree. The Creator did not give you the gift of imagination to fantasize, but to manifest. The true temple is not in the mountains or in churches, but in your mind. It is there that the invisible becomes flesh. It is there that the impossible bows. So from this moment on, act as one who already has. Speak as one who has already triumphed. Think as one who already is. Walk through life with the certainty that nothing can be denied you because everything already exists within you, awaiting only recognition. Money, opportunities, love, health, everything is attracted not by effort, but by identity. You do not receive what you want, you receive what you are. Therefore try, just for one day, to live in this truth. A single day without doubt, without waiting, without spiritual beggary. A day where you inhabit the state of wealth, abundance and security, even if the world still shows the opposite. And you will see, the universe will respond. It always responds. Because the law is perfect and faithful, what you assume to be true within yourself, the world confirms outside. Assume then what is noble, what is prosperous, what is worthy of a child of the Most High. And when the mind tries to deceive you with appearances, respond in silence with authority. I am what I decide to be, and everything inferior to that truth will disappear before your eyes. Remember, you are not here to look for signs of power. You are the sign itself. Creation begins and ends in you, and when this truth takes hold in your consciousness, money will come, life will flow, and the impossible will become every day. Because the entire universe bows before one who finally remembers who they are.